in order to get growth out of a muscle, you have to make sure that your protein synthesis is greater than your protein breakdown. So what that means is that you have to make sure that you're building and repairing tissue faster than you're breaking it down. So Dr. Cam this week did an active recovery with you guys yesterday, and it was because he was a little sore from doing the gardening in his parents' house and all the stuff he was doing. So he knew well enough in his session with you guys yesterday that he had to recover. So he gave you an active recovery as opposed to a building session. And that falls into the fact that it was important for him to make sure that his protein synthesis, his repairing, was better and greater than his breakdown. So that's when I talked about last week about branched chain amino acids, and I had my little container. This is one area that you can influence. Amino acids are basically our collection of protein molecules that will create the healing response, which allows for muscle growth. You can increase the amount of leucine and isoleucine, which I talked about last week, which are the two branched chain amino acids that actually improve and speed up protein synthesis. So if you're going to drink something all day, I would drink the branched chain amino acids. You can also obviously increase the amount of clean protein you're taking in a day. And that way you can guarantee that the muscles are building and repairing. Now, if you're finding that you're sore a lot, let me know. Some body types, again, we go back to genetics, once their body inflames, they have a hard time kicking out of that. And they find that they're sore, they go into the next workout and they're still sore, and the next workout they're still sore. There's sometimes just a few things we need to tweak in terms of supplements or food, things like that, just to break you out of that inflammatory cycle. It's usually not very difficult, but sometimes it happens. And those are people that typically still have a little bit of baby fat on their bodies. But again, back to that genetic factor, we may have to tweak a few things, okay? But just let me know, because those are things we can definitely tweak. So back to the muscle recovery. Muscle recovers at night. So here's where sleep becomes important. Muscles will only heal in REM sleep. So if you're not dreaming, if you're not getting a really good night's sleep, you're probably not recovering. So I do a lot of work with bodybuilders, and even though they look like they're, they big and and they walk around like this, if you breathe on a bodybuilder, they hurt. If you touch them lightly, they hurt. So what's happening in their bodies is that they're breaking. Of course, they're cheating by taking, steroids and stuff, but their body's not actually fully recovering. So they're building on scar tissue and scar tissue and scar tissue. So yeah, they're developing these muscles, but a lot of that muscle tissue is inflamed water retention muscles, not an actual true dense muscle. So they're actually injuring themselves over and over and over again until a point where that muscle can't do anything for them. And they come crying to me because they can't do anything. So that's where we don't want you guys to go, or anybody to go. But a lot of people will look up to a bodybuilder and say, okay, they obviously know that equation or that, fancy way of getting themselves bigger. They're cheating, but what they're doing is actually injuring themselves. So that whole sentence where the protein synthesis has to be greater than the protein breakdown, that's really, really, really important for you guys to remember for the rest of your lives. As an athlete, you need to know that sentence. Because if you're injuring yourself, which is what muscle breakdown is, right? So when you do a chest workout or a leg workout and your legs are sore, that delayed onset muscle soreness, the DOMS that you're getting, is an actual breakdown of muscle fibers. We need that for growth. So that's okay. But you wouldn't do 300 squats 30 days in a row and expect that anything past the first day of 300 squats gave you any increase in potential. It didn't. You just created more trauma. So that's why the old way of a leg day, a chest day, an arm day, a back day, a shoulder day still actually makes the most sense in most realms, because you're giving each muscle, a muscle group, a chance to recover, Or you can do push and pull days. You can do different things like Kelsey's doing, where you're, regardless of how you break it down, you want to make sure you've got about 48 hours in between body groups, so you have a chance to recover. But if you're not sleeping, you can have 2 weeks in between body parts, and it's not going to matter. you're going to stay inflamed, you're going to stay sore, and you're going to stay irritated. It's really, really important that we sleep. So I had emailed Kyle a sleep hygiene. I do a lot of sleep hygiene work with my concussion patients, and I'm going to share a little bit with you. You guys will get the document. And it's really, sleep hygiene comes down to a routine. So even though you guys aren't in school, and even though everything's a little chaotic in your lives right now, there's a little more stress, a little bit more uncertainty, and certainly not a lot of structure, it's really important with sleep hygiene that you're trying to create that for yourselves. So you want to go to sleep at the same time every night. You want to wake up at the same time every morning. And you want to create a routine so your body naturally figures out how to settle down and how to get into the sleep. So it's important that you have a dinner, you know, that 5, 6 o'clock slot. And you want to make sure that, yeah, if you're going to watch a little bit of TV, okay. But you want to make sure that things are starting to settle down. You read a book, you listen to some music, and you make sure that, you know, you're taking a good 30 minutes lying in bed before you drift off. If you wait till you're exhausted and say, Kim, I can't sleep, I can only fall asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, well, that's a problem because most people are almost finished their REM sleep by 3 o'clock in the morning. So if you're not able to fall asleep at 11, 12 o'clock, then I can almost guarantee you're either skipping REM sleep totally, or you're getting a very small amount of time in that REM sleep, which means you're not going to heal well enough. And these injuries are going to accumulate, and we're going to have a scar tissue problem. So let me know if anybody is having, not right now, you can just, you know, message me privately. Let me know if you're having any sleep problems. And you'll get the sleep hygiene document, which will help you figure things out. But routine is key. Keeping what's called a circadian rhythm, which is when your body knows it's daytime and when it knows it's nighttime. So right now is a little quacky because it is lighter longer. So sometimes drawing a shade or putting an extra blanket over top and making sure that it looks dark, your brain will naturally start to shut off. If there's any stimulation, even the light from an alarm clock, make sure it's turned around. You know, make sure you don't know that your phone buzzes, but there's an actual vibration that comes from anything that plugs in. So if your phone sits on your table right beside, your brain is computing those electromagnetic rays, basically the rays that come off of that phone. So shut your data off, go into airplane mode. You know, if you need it for an alarm, shut it off, try to get something else. But it's really important that you have very few things that emit any EMFs, any frequencies, you know, all those things, minimize those. If you need to, you know, you can, you know, put something over your eyes, put earplugs in, anything that will help prepare your body for sleep is the best thing you can do. So you can't sit there on TikTok or something at 11 o'clock at night and expect at 11:15 you're just going to fall asleep. You're actually stimulating the brain, so you're screwing it up because it thinks, okay, I'm getting stimulation now, I've got to start to work again, which is the exact opposite of what you want to achieve. So it's important that that's put away long before you fall asleep. Perfect world, it wouldn't even be in your room. I understand that, you know, it's everyone's alarm clocks, but in a perfect world, if we're having trouble sleeping, we may have to change that up a little bit. So sleep hygiene, make sure you stop drinking around 8 or 9 o'clock. You want to get most of your fluids in before that. And it's just to drift off gradually into sleep is the best way to do that. And we usually get REM sleep between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's important that you are asleep during those times, and again, in a perfect world. And that's where you'll get most of your protein synthesis activity, and that's where you'll get most of your repair. So that's kind of that piece in a nutshell. And that's more the muscles. And that's kind of more what you guys are all interested in seeing, if, you know, if you're going to walk around like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or if you're going to be more of a tall, lean person. So most of you have probably heard ectomorph, endomorph, and mesomorph. Those are 3 body types. They are a very basic body type, and most people don't fall into those categories exactly. But there is a way to find out how well you're going to put muscle on, which I kind of spoke about last week. So an ectomorph, or somebody who's long, and lean, is if you guys are watching that NBA series with Michael Jordan right now, which is fantastic, by the way, take a look at some of the players, even now, decades later. Look, you know, and watch them. They're long and they're skinny still. And that's because that's just their body type, right? They're tall, they're 7 feet tall. Well, they're not going to walk around with Arnold Schwarzenegger like muscles. They're just not physiologically able to do it. You look at Pippen, like he's, and then look at Shaquille O'Neal. Well, he's somewhere in the endomorph, mesomorph world, right? Even Michael Jordan, for that matter, look at his body type now. He's gained weight. So, he changed with age, obviously, because our metabolism slows down. So if you look at your parents, that kind of gives you your, 40s and 50s and 60s kind of body type, where it's a little more difficult to change. But in your age group, there's a lot we can do. But my ectomorphs, my Logan Stutzes, and those ones that are just really, really skinny and long, they're almost impossible. So when you go through your growth spurts, your bones grow first, and then your muscles lag up to about 2 years, which is why you get growing pains, shins, usually in the lower body, hips, legs, those kinds of things, back. And that's because when a bone grows, you've got 2 muscle attachments, right? Those are the tendons, the muscles in between. So when a bone grows, it stretches the tendons. And because the tendons lag behind the bone growth, that creates pain. Now, a stretched muscle is a weak muscle. So everybody think about that for a second. A stretched muscle is a weaker muscle. A short muscle is a stronger muscle. So I take my Logan Stutz, who's long, and always on stretch. He's not going to be able to produce a power like somebody who's a little shorter and closer to the ground and a little wider. Let's say a running back in football, or somebody who's even different guards and stuff on the court. Depending on how close you are to the ground will determine what your power output is you're capable of. So somebody who doesn't quite grow as much will keep a shorter muscle, less pain, because the bones don't ever really grow that far. So their power output, they can actually train the muscle at a younger age because they're not growing for so many years. Some kids don't stop growing till 21, 22. And then you look at other kids that stopped growing when they were 12 or 13. Well, now you've got 8 or 9 years of muscle growth potential difference, because you can't put on a lot of strength if you're in your growth years, if you're going to be tall and lanky. So you put somebody who's 5'7", 5'8", and they stop growing, and then you take a friend of theirs who's still growing and they go to 6'2", but they don't stop growing till 5 or 6 years later. Well, the one that stopped growing 5 or 6 years before has that many more years of muscle growth potential on their friend. And that's the difference in muscle growth. And that's why you look at your parents. Okay? Some of the genetic factors I can't change, but some of them we can. And the biggest thing is, when are you going to stop growing? How tall are you going to be? That's one of the biggest pieces to muscle growth at your ages. Kyle and I, well, that's a whole different factor, right? We stopped growing taller. I stopped when I was about 12, actually. And so we don't have that. The genetic is there, but the genetic factors for us are much different in how we think about how our body's going to change than it is for you guys. So the ones that are still growing, don't expect to put a lot of mass on. You'll get stronger, but you're not going to get thicker, right? Because your body is doing this still. Now, the ones who look at their mom and dad and they're 5'7", 5'9", 5'10", and you're sitting at 5'6", well, you're probably starting to slow down. Now, it is true that we grow about an inch taller than our parents, but if your growth spurts have been very stable and you're growing kind of very simple and very slow, well, you do have more potential than someone who's getting 6 inches this summer and 4 inches next summer, and you're getting these big spurts because you're kind of undoing a muscle that's done this because you haven't grown in 3 months. Then all of a sudden does this because you grew 6 inches in a summer. Well, you've lost a little bit of that growth. The strength is still there, but the growth of the muscle is not. So anybody that's looking to change the way they're looking, or you want to have some control in the way your body is going, that's the conversation that you would have with me, right? I would need to see, your parents, I would need to see what you look like from head to toe, and I would have an idea how to train you in a gym, for example, right? Now, the other thing with basketball players is, and I mean, I don't know so much right now, but typically what's hard with teenage boys especially is getting enough calories in you, right? So that's an environmental factor in growth. So if you're not getting enough, believe it, it's not nutritional, it's environmental. So if you're not getting enough calories to support the muscle growth, the recovery, and the caloric deficits that you're in when you're playing, well, now we got a problem, because you're going to use the energy on the court, and I'm not going to have enough calories, and especially in proteins, but enough calories in general to build muscle tissue. So a lot of times what we're having trouble with now, or we have for decades, is actually getting enough calories in. Kids that made a breakfast, they're flying out to school, they're in school all day, they're flying to practice, coming home, having a late dinner and going to bed, or getting their homework done. Well, it's really hard to put in enough calories in those guys. So that's another conversation. Right now, things in the world have slowed down. So you have more growth potential now, believe it or not, than you would if you were actually in school. So here's the time to change, especially because our weather's getting warmer. We're losing our winter fat. Our spirits are starting to lift, and we can control some of those factors a little bit more. So that's where muscle growth would come in. Now, not to the point where you can't move. So the kin stretching and stuff that Dr. Cam's doing, and doing movement when you're building muscle tissue, is allowing your body to take the growth and make it functional. If you just spend every day in the gym, but you never do anything with that mass, which I have a lot of friends that are like that, they can't run, they can't skip the rope, they can't play a game of basketball, because they've created mass and strength, but only in power and against a resistance. So that's not really fitness. So, you know, what we're doing with our athletes here, especially, is we're changing your bodies. We're teaching you how to do certain things with your bodies, but every week we're making sure those changes stay functional. And that's what allows you to be an athlete, is functional strength, right? So you want to make sure that, yeah, there's an element of endurance, there's an element of power, and there's an element of strength, and an element of flexibility. And Kyle has put a really, really, really impressive program together to make sure that all those factors are covered. So you guys are pretty lucky. Without probably even doing it consciously, he's created a really good program to make sure that everything is touched on, and you guys are going to develop in a very stable environment, and in a very equal, which is what we want, way. We don't want any muscles that are imbalanced, or, you know, muscle groups that are overpowering other muscle groups, because then again, we're creating and we're setting you guys up for injuries that you guys don't even know about, because they could be years away. So make sure that everything that you're doing has, and it allows you to use it functionally, which is what, you know, you're doing when you're testing it with Cam and Kelsey, and obviously Kyle on the court and in your driveway. So those are the muscle pieces. Now bones, again, they go in spurts. Your long bones, which is your femur and your, oh my goodness, I just forgot the word of it.
Humerus.
Humerus.
Funny.
Oh my goodness, I need more carbs, I think. Your long bones, thank you, Kyle, are the ones that grow the most aggressively. And they're also the ones that make you create a dominance. So the way you get a dominant hand being right or left, believe it or not, is which side of your body grows the fastest and stabilizes the quickest. That's how you become able to adapt to one side. You can obviously be ambidextrous, and a lot of people can golf and play hockey in one, but they write with the other. And that just comes with preference, but that's how you end up being dominant one-sided, is you usually grow one side more than the other, or a little bit. And remember, you're never going to be symmetrical. You're going to have a shoulder that's dropped. You're going to have one that's rotated. You're going to have a tighter hamstring on the left. Because otherwise we'd all be models walking the runway. Athletes will never be balanced because our sports don't allow us to be, right? You're going to have an arm that you prefer receiving the ball. You're going to have a hand that you prefer. There's always a leg. Dancer, skaters, they take off, they land with another one. We naturally produce imbalances, unfortunately. That's the way it goes. And that's why every sport has kind of a list of injuries that are most common because of that. Look at Tiger Woods, look at anybody, and there's a list of injuries. So understand that even though we're trying to stabilize you guys and create a balance, your sport will kind of prevent us from doing that perfectly, because your sport is going to create imbalances, and that's what makes the sport. So just keep that in mind, that as we're doing this, we may have to, go back to Tiger Woods, for example. Just before his 5th surgery, I think it was, on his back, they were trying to do every 3rd tee off in all of his practice rounds left-handed, so that he was at least rotating the spine back into place. And then obviously it didn't work, so they had to change a whole bunch of things about his swing itself. But good thing about basketball, there's less. There's always a more comfortable side of the net. There's always, certain things that come a little bit more naturally. But the good thing about basketball is there's fewer imbalances than there are in other sports, racket sports, your dance, your gymnastics, all those things. So that's the good news, because with you guys growing, the imbalances, like I said, kind of pose to be, end up being a bit of a problem. So back to the bones. So some of you might be feeling some of those shin pains, the knee pains, the hip pains. Those can be a little bit from the times, because we are sitting more. You guys aren't doing recess. You're not quite having the same life. You're not walking to the bus station and all those other things. But it is the time for growing. It's the spring. So just like the flowers grow, believe it or not, our bodies, and this might sound hokey, but it is true. Our bodies during the winter months, because of the cold, goes into a slight hibernation. So when we go into a slight hibernation, our metabolism slows down, which means that we're not actively changing. We're actually, all our process is slow in order to keep some adipose tissue. This is the season for growth. And I don't mean the COVID-15 or whatever it's called, but you guys will actually sprout. And that's why people, if you ask your parents, they'll always say, he grew 6 inches this summer. Not, he grew 6 inches this winter. It's always, he grew 6 inches this summer. And that's because the most of your growth will occur during your spring, summer, and early fall. So now you guys are growing. And so if you guys are having any aches and pains in those areas, let me know, let Kyle know, let Dr. Cam know. There's a lot we can do. We can teach you how to ice. There's a lot of sleeves and some braces, and there's a lot of things out there that we can help you guys with, because we can't do anything about it, unfortunately. Sometimes it's putting an orthotic in, changing a shoe, warming you up a little better. And of course, because you guys are in driveways and not so much courts, the asphalt's not the perfect thing to be bouncing up and down on a bone that's growing. But don't quit. There's a lot we can do. You just got to let us know that you're having some aches and pains, so we can, figure out why and slow it down a little bit. Okay. And so, yeah, reach out to any of us. We'll make sure that we teach you guys what to do.
Kim, I just had a quick question. Sorry to interrupt. So I know jump rope, we're going to slowly over the winter, as it gets a little bit warmer, or over the summer, sorry, we're going to incorporate more jump rope, just because I can get outside. Yep. So I personally hate doing it on the grass, because I find it's difficult to get it around. And I'm just thinking here, I know a lot of us probably do have pavement or lockstone. Would it be worthwhile for us to keep a large box, maybe tear it apart and jump on top of cardboard?
Sure. Or don't jump in your court shoes, jump in a running shoe. Okay, so hold on. I'm going to grab a running shoe and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so this is my runner. So if you look at the toe box, you can see that it's raised. It goes up on a slant. If you look at a court shoe, it's perfectly flat. Okay, and that's because in a runner, it's designed to always throw a runner over their toes, because it's preparing you for the next stride. right? So you kind of run right here. But in a court shoe, the purpose is flat so that your center of gravity sits back here so you can pivot and move. And Michael Jordan said something last night, which I was really, really impressed with, because he talked about another player, or one of them did, and I don't know what, one of them said that they were able to get around him because they knew where he sat on his foot. And they knew that he was going to actually be delayed in his reaction time because of that. That's biomechanics. That was impressive.
So that is also the player that he hit the game winner against.
That's right.
He came by and he knew that Davis was going to continue gliding because he's so heavy on his toes and inertia, right? It's science.
Exactly.
He, it looked like he pushed off. And I remember watching this game as a kid. I was younger than you guys. And I was like, oh, and that was the big controversy. But looking back and actually that comment, I was like, oh my God, it just went away, right?
Yeah, no, and that's exactly why you guys don't wear running shoes, because your inertia and all your pressure sits here. So you can't move fast enough, right? But in a runner, I want to be moving forward. You guys need to move in multi directions. So, but in skipping, you are mostly here. So if you guys skipped with a runner, it would absorb force, distribute force, and probably be easier on the knees and the legs than trying to land on a court shoe that has a completely different movement or lack of movement, really. So if they have a runner, that would help too. Okay. So that's kind of the growth, the growth, the muscle growth, the changes. And obviously there's, we'll get into more, like next week is the vitamins and supplements. So that one, I'm trying to tie everything in. So by the end of like around 10 weeks, you guys will have a series of these Zoom sessions that allows you to understand how your body works. If you know how your body works, then you know how to change it. And you'll know when you're falling off the wagon, and you'll know what to do to get back on the wagon. It's really hard to change your body if you have no idea what's happening. So it's kind of like if you've got a headache and you know it's because you slept on a pillow wrong, so I can take an Advil. You know what you did, so you know how to change it. But if you don't know what you did, then you're going to be guessing on how to change it and it won't work. Okay, so make sure that you guys, reach out to us if you have any questions. We're giving you obviously bits of information to make this whole platform so you guys know everything you need to know about changing the body, moving the body, repairing the body, fueling the body. And I'll keep adding. You'll see that I'll kind of, reiterate and some information over and over and over again, because there's a few factors, especially at your ages, that I really, really want to make sure you guys understand. And growing is definitely one of them. It'll seem like you're not getting anywhere. And in a way, you're probably not, depending on your genetics, but you will someday. Guaranteed you will someday. It's just whether or not you're able to do that now, or whether you just have to keep training and train speed and train a few other things. Agility, there's a lot of fitness things that you can be training, and basically table power and size for a while, just knowing that, with genetics, it's just not on the table right now. So, things like that.
That's perfect, Kim. Like I tell all of my science students the same thing. We've got one body. You may as well learn how it works and take care of it, because you get one go with it, right?
Yep.
Obviously, medicine and science is changing, but hey, guess what? Your body's worked the same way for thousands of years. We're probably going to stay on that trend for a few thousand more. Yeah, you may as well figure it out. And it's not hard. It's just a little bit, and you'll see a lot of commonalities. You'll see a lot of things, especially when you guys get into the senior level sciences in high school. You'll start to see really how interconnected every discipline really is when it comes to health and fitness and medicine.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are definitely going to be ahead of the game when you get there, especially some of our younger athletes. So we do have some PowerPoints and notes coming out from Kim. But if you guys, like she said, if you have any questions, I know 2 or 3 of you have talked to me about sleep. So I've entered that, Kim, into the Sunday questionnaire answers. And that is a big one, right? It could be stress related. It could be, there's so many different things that can cause sleep issues, but it's probably that, between that and nutrition, really, those are like the big things. If your sleep and nutrition are off, you'll never outwork them. So
no, that's very true.
Yeah.
And yeah, you guys, nobody's functioning in a normal world right now. And you guys finding out today that school is canceled is probably going to hit most of you hard tonight. Yeah. But I mean, again, we are creatures of habit, right? So without that, without school for that length of time, believe it or not, it's very easy to fall off your rhythm. So we just have to make sure we create the need to sleep and the need to get up at the same times, and hope we can reverse it. And listen, guys, we're talking very sciencey, but Kyle, myself, I don't know Dr. Cam very well, but if you guys just need to talk, if you guys just need to, I miss my, anything, it could be boyfriend stuff. It could be just, I need somebody to give me some help on how to do something or how to get through something. We're here. Like, even though it's sciencey and, it's medical and it's, but we all went through it. Right. And if you guys trust one of us enough to, just chat it out, feel free to do so. We're here for a number of reasons and resources.
Absolutely. Glad you said that. So every one of us coaches in some capacity, whether it's more of a specialized sport like Ken, Alan, and myself, or Kim, who's working, and Crystal and Cam, they're working with essentially every sport, and not even just athletes, just people in general, right? And then out of the 6 instructors, you've got 3 of us that are teachers or professors. All right. So again, lots of experience, and one of us will hopefully strike that chord, right? And that's the beauty of having so many different backgrounds and instructors, is you'll feel comfortable with one of us, or hopefully all of us, right? But anything, right? You guys have a lot on your plate. As I said last session, I couldn't imagine being a teenager right now, going through this whole COVID thing. So
no. And half of what we all do is there's mental components to it, right? Which I'm sure I can probably get on, obviously, in terms of mental focus and mental imagery. And I'd say probably when I work with my sports teams, 50% of what I do is some sort of counseling, some sort of education. And sometimes it's just a hug. Sometimes it's just, you're going to make it through, especially with injuries. And I had a few really tough ones over the last 2 years with the Sudbury Five, that as soon as they get an injury, mental health goes right out the window. So, if you guys are struggling with any of that stuff, there's a lot we can do. There's just, if we have to bring a sports psychologist on that's local, if you guys need to talk, I think Ken's probably approachable. I think we can probably get him on some sort of media, but if you guys need a one-on-one, when things start to open up, we can get that as well. Right now it's a little tougher, but some people need more of, this isn't the format that everybody feels comfortable opening up. Sometimes it has to be something that's, a little closer, maybe 6 feet apart, but, in terms of, I just need somebody in a room with me to open those, open those lines of communication. That can be done, at some point as well. So there's, between Kyle and I and everybody else that's involved, we have a lot of contacts, and we can certainly help you guys out in any format you need, because it goes hand in hand, physical, mental, spiritual, whatever it is. Like we do prayers before every basketball and every hockey game in the OHL. So it's, if it's even something to that degree, because you're lagging something and you just don't know what it is, just let us know. We'll find it.
Reach out. The more you ask, the more we can help, right? And take advantage. So this is, like I said, this is great. I love this, especially the science, right? That speaks to me because I'm a total geek. But like I said, we've got the one body. Why not learn how it works? And it hasn't changed in a long time, and it won't change. So this is some permanent knowledge that we can have, and learn with your parents even, right? And kind of get into the kitchen. I know we've talked about that on some of my sessions, that we can learn together with our families. And I know some of your parents do some of the workouts with you, and the Pilates and core and the glutes. Some of that stuff is spoke to some of your parents, I know. But I think that's fantastic that they're all getting involved with you.
That's good.
tomorrow is another one of the Pilates core and glute sessions with Crystal. So that will be uploaded to the Facebook group. She's usually pretty keen, and that's done first thing in the morning. And then we'll get that onto the webpage as well. It's supposed to be pretty nice for the next few days. So, guys, girls, get outside, do what we can. Maybe that just means laying a blanket down and doing that Pilates work outside, get that vitamin D from the sun. Again, thanks for participating. And I know you're taking notes. Some of you aren't sharing your video, but I know that the pencils are furiously scribbling. So any questions, though, before we depart? If you guys don't want to turn your mics on, you can just put it in the chat. Okay. Usually I get questions right after these. So if I do get any, Kim, I'll forward them over to you if they're pertaining to you. And like I said, I'll probably have that PowerPoint emailed over by maybe, let's say, tomorrow. And then if you want me to change or add anything, and I'll touch a little bit on the sleep stuff as well. I'll add in a couple slides on the sleep.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then if anybody has questions, so next week is the supplements and vitamins. If you want to send me anything, I won't say who you are, but if there's anything you want to touch on, like creatine, glutamine, if you have any questions of things that you've heard, seen in gyms, all those kinds of things, seen on muscle magazines or whatever it is, send me the requests. Again, I won't say who, but I can touch on it and explain to you what they do, how they affect the body, and what you can expect out of them. And then that way you'll know.
Perfect. All right. Well, have a great night, everybody. Get outside. It's still sunny. It's actually probably the nicest it's been. I'm going to do my dribble right now, so I'll see everyone tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone.
Have a good night.